What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. It is your girl Christina, and for today's video I wanted to speak on some topics related to Hispanic Heritage Month. But before I start, as always, if you guys like this here makeup look, you can check out my previous video. This is basically my welcome to fall first look of the season. So I wanted to speak on two things. One was an article that I came across, and the other is just some Instagram posts that I've been seeing. So like I said, we are in Hispanic Heritage Month. It officially started September 15th and it goes through October 15th. So I just wanted to first say, I've been seeing some comments online of people saying, well, you know, people in like the actual countries don't celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month, blah, blah, blah. This is just like Americans, which I'm like, yeah, duh. This is an American thing. This was created here in the US. So I wouldn't be expecting people actually back in the home countries to be celebrating this. So I don't know why that's even being said. A little background history for those of you that don't know. So this whole Hispanic Heritage Month, it actually began as Hispanic Heritage Week, which was signed into law by President Lyndon Johnson in 1968, and then it was expanded to be a whole month, which was implemented by President Ronald Reagan in 1988. So September 15th was chosen as the starting point of Hispanic Heritage Month because it marks the Independence Day of 5 Hispanic countries, being Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, and Nicaragua, followed by Mexico, Chile, and Belize on September 16th, 18th, and 21st. So there's a lot of Independence Days going on during this month. So I feel it's fitting. So again, this is an American thing to celebrate it. It was implemented by US presidents, so that is why we Hispanics, Hispanic Americans, that's why we celebrate it. So I just wanted to get that out the way first. Okay, so first I came across this article that was basically titled, "Does Hispanic Heritage Month Need a Rebrand?" So in the article, it posed a few questions like, you know, whether we should still call ourselves Hispanic, should we call ourselves Latinos, or both, or none? So I did read the article, and it basically said in there that some are against using the term Hispanic because they feel that it is tied to Spain and hence colonization, and they feel that it leaves out those of African and indigenous ancestry within Latin America, because the word Hispanic again is very closely tied to Spain, and therefore it's kind of Eurocentric. And yeah, so that is why they're kind of opposing it now. While for others, Hispanic just simply means you come from a country or you are a descendant of a country that speaks Spanish. So for them, it's more of a literal meaning, which is the kind of the meaning I've always kind of for it. And then it also explained in the article how the use of the word Hispanic in the United States was presented as an English parallel to the word Hispano, which could be used to would be used to include all the nationalities, cultures, and races of people that exist within Latin America into one box. So this term, along with Latino, they're like these all-inclusive terms that were designated as umbrella terms to unify and reflect a shared culture amongst Latinos, which, I mean, if you really think about it, it's kind of inaccurate because Latino culture is not one culture. It's many different cultures and nationalities that fit under that umbrella of Latino. But again, people feel that even the word Latino sometimes is very much focused on our European ancestry and leaves out the African and indigenous ancestry. So based on the article, it does appear that more people are like kind of more leaning towards using Latino or Latinx, which that still is weird to me, but people are more comfortable using that than using the term Hispanic. Because again, they feel that the word Hispanic holds more of a connection to Spain and colonization, whereas the word Latino was more of a direct connection with Latin America. So that is what I got from the article. Now, I also wanted to show you guys what was discussed on an Instagram post from a page that I follow, which was basically talking about the same thing, about the use of the word Hispanic versus Latino. And they asked, you know, the people reading the post, like, which one do you identify with? Do you prefer one over the other? Do you use both? Or do you use neither? So here is the post and also some of the answers that people provided. So as y'all can see, the answers were they varied. There were those that did identify more Hispanic. There are those that don't identify or don't want to identify with Hispanic because of Spain, and they want to denounce their colonizer, and they'd rather identify as Latino. Or there was one, I think the Dominican one, that said, I identify as Dominican, so he doesn't really identify with either. So, yeah, it can really go either way, depending on how you personally feel about either term. Now, for me personally, as I've said before, my primary way of identifying has always been to say I'm Dominican. Even though I was born here, and I would many times let that be known, like I was born here in the US, but my parents are Dominican. But I think that is something pretty common for first generation children of immigrants to identify with their parents' culture. That wasn't something that was taught to me or that I was told, oh, you should do this. That was something that I just naturally did. And again, I think that's the case for most first generation Hispanics. I also have always identified as both Latina and Hispanic. Latina because, again, my heritage comes from a Latin American country. Even though some would say, well, technically, DR is Caribbean. It's part of the Caribbean. It's not part of Latin America. But at the end of the day, Cuba, DR, and Puerto Rico have always had a cultural tie to Latin America. So I think that's why we get included in that. So again, I've always identified as Latina and also as Hispanic because DR is a Spanish-speaking country. Now, when it comes to race, that is one area where I'm not gonna lie, I always kind of struggled a little bit. Growing up, it was like I knew I was black, but I didn't know I was black. I don't know, it was very weird. Not that I think or ever thought that I was like 100% sub-Saharan African descent. But, you know, based on my skin color, my phenotype, whatever, I would say that I'm black. But I guess when you're raised in a household where your race wasn't really discussed, it kind of leaves it up to you to figure that out. Like, I would be called negra because of my skin color or morena, but that was as far as it went. Like, we never had a discussion of race, you know? So anyway, so when it would come to filling out forms, whether it was like a standardized test in school or job application, whenever it got to the section of race, that is, I would always kind of like pause for a second. And what would confuse me or kind of trip me up is because a lot of times Black and African American were the same category. Like it would literally say Black / African American. So I'd be sitting there like, well, I'm not African American, so do I still check it? Like I'm obviously not going to check white, you know, and I'm not going to check Asian. It's not like mixed race was really an option, you know. So I would literally be there confused. or it would say Black and then in parentheses, not of Hispanic origin. So I'd just be like, well, what the hell am I supposed to check then? Like clearly these racial categories does not include Hispanics, of non-European ancestry. Which reminds me, I remember my kids' father once, he had filled out some form. I don't know if it was for a job or something school related, but when it got to the race part, I remember he told me that they had told him that because he was Hispanic, he should check white, even though he was like my color. Okay, like he looks black, like like a somewhat kind of light-skinned Black person. So I was like, really? They told you to check white? So are they now assuming that all Hispanics are white? So I guess that is where some of the, I don't know, disagreement comes from with some people for using these terms, because again, it doesn't always really include Hispanics of like higher African or indigenous ancestry. But anyway, so yeah, that was like my dilemma. But so what ended up happening in most cases is I just go ahead and check Black anyway. But then if they had that separate ethnicity box where it would say, Hispanic/Latino, then I would check that too. So I would check both things. So yeah, it was kind of a struggle growing up. But I think it's gotten a little better now. Yeah. So that was my experience growing up. So yeah, so I just wanted to just kind of put the question out there and open the discussion to you guys. If you are Hispanic or Latino, whatever you want to call yourself, like, do you prefer to identify as Hispanic? Do you prefer to identify as Latino? Do you identify as both? Or do you identify as neither? Or do you just go by nationality? Or do you go by the region? Because I saw some comments saying, well, I just identify as Caribbean, for example. So yeah, and if you're not Hispanic, you can always give your opinion too, that's fine. So yeah, that was it for this video, guys. So again, leave your comments down below, and I'll check you guys in the next one. Bye.